Before I begin, I want to say a big thanks to the guys on screen for their inspirational comments on Discord, which ended up going into the video. Thank you very much. G'day, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me. So today we are looking at the HDZero official CAD. Now there's been a lot of word around about, well, let's just say that a lot of people have been saying you can build your own goggles, and at some point that might be true, but I don't think that is the intention behind HDZero putting this out there. I think this is more of a, we want to work with the community to get feedback kind of thing. Now in a moment, or maybe a bit more than a moment, we're going to go and have a look at this in Rhino and break it down and analyze it. So what we can sort of glean from this design. And then I think I'm going to print off the faceplate and chuck a fat shark, face pad on it and try it out and see how that fits. Now it appears that someone has made this, and we will go have a look at this in a moment. However, I mean, there is some confusion that I do want to clear up before we get into the analysis. I will be addressing this in the analysis as well, if the power cord and the power button placement thing. Obviously, there's some questions, and I'm not sure if... So Fozzed Out actually makes some good points, but I don't think that the actual included things in this are the optics. And yeah, I had some problems with the step file as well. We'll get to that in a bit. So hopping over the Discord, I'm just going to read out Lynx AU's comment here. Hi all! I keep seeing and hearing that HDZero Goggles are fully open source and you can make your own with 3D print... This isn't the case. The 3D CAD files are there to make design modifications to. They are not there to make your own goggles at home. We'll discuss that later. Please try and educate people on this, and that is one of the reasons I'm making this video, because I have seen these kind of things around, and I suppose, if this is on the Discord, then, then maybe there's a need for a video on it. So look, I do actually think that in the future, you will be able to make your own goggles at home, but as it stands, that's not the case. It's not really feasible with the current global trade situation, so shortages of supply and such like that. But I can envisage a supplier putting together kits which would allow you to build your own, maybe at a slightly cheaper price than buying the goggles, or maybe more. Honestly, I mean, comment down below. Hardcore DIYers are probably going to be pretty keen just to sort of print off their own custom colored casings and whatnot, if they can buy the electronics anyway. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how that pans out, and I reckon there is room in the market for that. Let's quickly have a look at the one that has been made here. So this was Fozzed Out. This is where I saw his name before. So Fozzed Out has made the goggles, as you can see. If I can actually bring up a picture that's not a million miles tall. And this is the kind of thing with 3D printing your own goggles. As you can see, there is some more work required on these to get a nice finish. Now this was PLA 0.2 layer heights, so kind of rough, not incredibly fine. And as you can see, it was done on a 45-degree angle, and I believe that this was because Fozzed Out had problems with normal auto-generated supports in Cura, causing ruining the prints. I'm not sure which parts it's particularly applicable to, but it would have definitely been applicable to some. So as he mentions down here, pretty much everything printed at 45 degrees with tree supports in Cura. Any other way makes the auto-generated supports ruin the print. Done on a Corality CR6 SE layer height, and took about 40 hours to print, and done in PLA. Anyway, let's go have a look at this step file and see what we can glean from that. Look at Okay, so here we are, and firstly I just want to apologize for the audio quality. I'm stuck on my G773 headset and can't seem to get my other microphone working at the moment on my laptop, which is a bit annoying. Anyway, as you can see, this is loaded in here with a couple of errors and what one might refer to as planes syndrome, maybe. Now this is related to one part of the print. So if I get in here and remove it, which I'll do in a minute. So right now I think I'm just going to delete that out because I've already gone through and laid all these things up in a separate file. But I will show you this here. This is the native step file as it comes, and apart from the errors which we'll look at soon in the cleaner file, you can see that most of the pieces are in good order and separate out quite nicely, and so that's pretty nice to see. For reference, I'm in Rhino 5.0, which is a couple of versions back now, but you know, quite an expensive program, so I'm just using this version. Now that being said, the errors that you've seen there, it's unfortunate that one would get those when loading into a program such as Rhino. It can be a very finicky program, Rhino, but it is you know, one of the industry standard programs used quite commonly by you know, designers and architects and engineers to design and analyze stuff. So yeah, maybe there might be some work that needs doing on that particular casing part that has those errors. Anyway, let's go and have a look at firstly those errors and then the rest of the goggles. Now, first things first, we'll get to have a look at this. Now, as you can see, there are some broken surfaces there, and on this side, if I come around, it seems to be fine. However, again, it does appear that this is the top surface, this top case, half of the case. It is where the main issues appear to be with this CAD file. If I remove that, we can see that everything else is nice and dandy. Starting at the back here, we've got the diopters there, and there seems to be a nice slot for those to pull on out. Seems like you'll be levering them out this way, sort of thing, and they'll sit behind that and in front of this edge just here. Now there's also venting for if I can get rid of some of this, you can see the venting from the fan runs down and is blown down these ducts onto the optics. Now it looks like the venting might go behind the diopters when they're in. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if that's going to help for fogging, like on eyeside of the diopter there, but yeah, that's something that we'll have to, someone who uses diopters will have to comment on, I presume probably more validly than me. Moving forward from there, you can see that there are a number of fans actually on this. There's a fan modeled up here. So underneath this casing, there is a fan modeled. There's a fan modeled over here. For some reason, it won't bring it up properly. And a fan modeled over here. Now, that is mainly because there is a lot of electronics in this. As you can see, we've got 4 boards on the sides and either 1 or 3 on the top. These fans on the sides are going to have those nice big wide grills, which is great for airflow, but not so great if there's any water, you know, anywhere in that air. So I'm a little concerned about these particular boards being more susceptible to environmental damage just because of that. I would love to hear any comments the design team has on possible conformal coating of these boards in particular, or something like that. Now, those are going to be the receiver boards either side. Go to the bottom case for you so you can see, and they're going to have
at least one ASIC and a bunch of other, components on them. So a lot of warmth there. These ones back here, they both have HDMI outs or HDMI out and one in, and those are going to obviously have to have their own ASICs for that, as well as the screen. Excuse me. As well as the screens, I should say, are going to require a ASIC to run those. So there's going to be a lot of chips in this. It's going to be quite a heavy, electronics heavy set of goggles, but I suppose this is what we have to expect from the digital generation of goggles. I do also want to point out, while we've got that there, I'll get rid of the faceplate and those diopters. Here is the SD card. Now, if I bring back the bottom plate, you can see there is a lovely recess for that. So very nice design touch there. In fact, it does look like most of the goggles, quite tactile. And on the other side, you can see there is the HDMI. There is 3 barrels included on these 2 boards, but then there's this opening here. To me, it's not modeled, but that looks like it's a USB sized opening to me. If you reference the HDMI, yeah, maybe that's where the USB-C is going to go, if it's USB-C, which I really hope it is. Okay, so before I move on to talking about the casing, the little bit of electronics I want to cover just here is that looks suspiciously like a module bay plug, a very familiar module bay plug. So this is 29.515 millimeters in length, and the height of it is 20.912. Whether that will work with casings for external modules, and your external module casing may cover some of your fan grill. I don't know. Anyway, that I do feel is worth mentioning before we move on. On that note, let's move on. Now you can see the actual goggles themselves are going to be fastened together by these 3 screws, and then the electronics will be held into the top half by those screws there, and get them out of the way. The dials on the top do seem to be, firstly, very tactile. We've got 2 spinning, rotating dials, which I imagine will be push button as well. This does seem to have some sort of internal structure in it. I'm not sure what the deal is there and whatnot, but it might be for a multi-function button. So here we can see that there is a stylish bevel on the edge of this hole. Now that's good and lovely, but I would love to see, as well as at the bottom of this, some sort of rubber grommet at the bottom of the SMA to stop water just going, oh yeah, sick, a beveled edge to roll into. If you get a raindrop on it or something like that, it just seems a bit open in that regard. Yeah, and this is an outdoor use device, so this should be considered. Now the fan. Lovely little design, very familiar. However, I do not really see enough openings in this fan to allow that 30mm fan behind, in the fan casing, to allow that 30mm fan behind it to suck in all the air it can. The sides I would be much less concerned about, providing that cylinder's not a thing. But the actual, this one on top, and that's got to cool your screens, as well as provide airflow down sufficient to clear any build-up of condensation off your lenses and diopters. So a couple of minor criticisms or suggestions regarding that, and a few other things. But mainly this looks like a really nice design. So a quick comment about this plug assembly and an off switch. It would seem to me that this is a sliding switch, as the switch is modeled itself, and the hole, of course, is elongated in reference to the actual sort of pass-through activation mechanism. When you've got this plugged in, I don't think it's going to be such a problem in terms of either this being bump susceptible because it's a sliding switch, or this being difficult to access because it's Probably no real big deal, just to push the arm of the barrel jack down a bit and rotate it, because it can do that. So I'm not too concerned about that. And also, in a way, I think having this covering this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It sort of stops you from accidentally turning it off, which I have heard people comment about, like the new Fat Sharks, like with the button that people accidentally turning off their goggles and stuff like that. And I'm quite used to just plugging mine in and going from there anyway. So yeah, you can sort of run with that. I don't know if there's going to be, like, as far as the software goes that is going to run the goggles, I have no idea as to, like, whether they're going to have cool features like Orca does, where you can change how the button functions, the on and off button, and customize how your goggles function. That would probably be well within the realm of possibility, given the sophisticated electronics that are going to go into these goggles. The overall dimensions of the goggles are reasonably similar. I've got this says 186 millimeters across from here to here. And that seems reasonable. They're pretty similar to basically to what you got from your Fat Sharks, but just slightly bulkier, I'd say. For exact measurements, just give me a few minutes and I'll come back. So the goggles themselves measure in at about 186 across, about 42 for the actual body of the goggles themselves in terms of how high they are. For the faceplate here, you've got about 66 from top to bottom. And in terms of the actual sort of height of the goggles, excluding the head straps, my apologies, the height of the goggles, or the thickness of the goggles, was 81 millimeters, sort of front to back. And then I suppose you can add another roughly 10 millimeters, and yeah, it's a little less actually, because that wasn't exactly perpendicular. So there are the dimensions of the goggles in a rough sense, just sort of getting them quickly for you. So my main concerns really would be, apart from being very impressed with the design and thinking it looks like quite a sound design overall, my main concerns are that the fan at the top doesn't have enough open space to pull air through, the module on the side there, just here, and the susceptibility to water ingress in a couple of different places, like the antennas and those side grills. But apart from that, and possibly an issue with ventilating and clearing condensation on the back of these diopters, given that the airflow seems to be directed to the front side and the main lenses. Oh, sorry. Yeah, come on, brain. And of course, the 2mm thick head straps. Like, seriously, that cannot be 2mm thick. It's just not strong enough, guys. It's not strong enough. It needs to be stronger. Please make it stronger. This is not going to be an easy print. Like, there's nothing about this that says I'm an easy print. A lot of support material, which means a lot of post-processing. I honestly, would you be bothered? You'd have to be really keen to look like you've got a half-rate set of goggles to 3D print your case. You'd have to be really good and do a lot of work to make them look good. Like, you'd have to print them off, and then you'd have to surface them, and then they would look good. Unless you just like that kind of look, and that's what you're going for, which is probably cool too. But compared to how these will look coming from the factory with an injection molded case, yeah, that's gonna look the biz. But I guess in that way, I kind of put a challenge out there to people to try to print this off and make it look bonza. Yeah, let's see what we can do with this, because it would be cool to be able to have custom casings for it. I just don't see this as being an easy print at all, especially for most people with their 3D printer. Level of, like common, get into the hobby and have a 3D printer as an extra tool kind of 3D printer person, instead of being a 3D printing person. That's kind of what I mean. So before I go on and try to print this, I actually wanted to quickly touch on this note of printing your own custom 3D printing goggles. There could well be an issue with buying a set of goggles, pulling them apart, and then using the electronics to build, to fill your own printed set of cases. I imagine it can be done technically. It's not a big problem, but If you had an issue, it could be a problem. So say you had them in the new, you did it all and had them in the new case, then they broke for some reason when you tried to turn them on. Now you've got the problem of demonstrating whether that was anything you did or whether it was broken from the beginning. And hopefully at this point you've actually tried them before you pull them apart, as I always recommend one does, and document it, video it, or something like that. This, I think, does need to be addressed by HDZero in some sort of statement at some point in the near to medium future. I don't see it as really being necessary before the goggles come out though, because there's enough to worry about, I'm sure. But it is going to be a thing. The only real solution I do see for that is kits. So you buy an electronics kit from a manufacturer, whoever, HDZero, whoever else, and then you use that to assemble your own goggles from that in the case you make. That is better, but it still leaves problems. There is a problem in our industry, in the FPV industry, with this issue. If you get a part and it breaks, like I recently had with an F722, where it fried itself, and I ended up arguing with Diatone about it because how did I break it? And it really comes down to what the law in your country says. Now, if a company, is going to treat people badly in this industry, I think we really need to talk about it. And that's probably the best protection we've got, is to make sure that we reward good customer service with our dollar or whatever currency you may be using. Because that's really gonna, speak. The dollar walks, bullshit talks. So yeah. All right. Anyway, that's that. Let's go try print off this bloomin' faceplate and see if I can actually get something that will fit my face.
Okie dokie, so here we are. It's printed off overnight, and what I've actually done here, this is my second attempt. Our first attempt I forgot to reset the temperature down from 237, which I was using for the TPU I was running, and it kind of messed up the print, so that ended up in a mess. So here is our second attempt with the correct settings, and I've actually used blockers. So instead of using tree supports or anything like that, I've got an older version of Cura, so I've used blockers, as you can see, and tried to separate out the print. Now let's see if she comes off nice and easy. Come on. There we go. And there we go. So I'm going to hop to the bench. Okay, so unfortunately I'm having some problems with my other camera, and there's a battery issue going on there. So I'm just going to start from this angle. Hopefully that works out, and we'll just pull all this off. Ow. Just want to gently go through and start trying to find those weak points and opening those up. And as you can see here, I basically removed most of the support from the top, just leaving like these columns. Accidentally left that one, and these little supports up here, but you can see that printed pretty well, just with those little side supports here. It seems like it's got a tendency to bind with this support just in this corner a fair bit. It's quite a gentle piece, so I want to be careful going about this, of course, and just gently try to find those weak spots and make them bigger and weaker. Alright, that side seems to be pretty good. Just keep working on this side. Boom, skiz. Now we just got to get you out. Yes. Yeah, a bit of binding there. And there we go. So I'll go over this. As you can see, there's rough edges and all sorts of stuff like that. I'll go over this, try to tidy it up, come back, and then we'll see what it sits like on the face. I know I could check that now, but I kind of want to make it nicer. I see a problem. Okay, I have put the face mask pad on, and I see a little bit of an issue, at least for fitting my face. It does appear that this is a little bit shallow. Now, that immediately brings to mind, like the standard solution would be a thicker face pad, right? But in this case, I imagine that the most 3D printed part of these goggles will be the faceplates. And being able to customize those to your face, get a nice parametric design made up of something. I'm not familiar with doing that kind of design, but I know there are others out there in the community who are very good at it. But even so, this is cleaned up fairly well, and I reckon that, you know, with like maybe another hour's work on it, you could get really nice results. But there are some issues. I'll throw up some photos so you can see, and you can see like up here and whatnot, there are some print issues. However, for the most part, it's pretty nice, and those could be overcome with a bit of post-processing and better printer skill, better printer setup. I literally just dump this into Cura, like quite an old version of Cura. I'll try to put the version number down here, and tilted it at 45, chucked in some blocks like I showed you, and yeah, printed away, and there you go. So yeah, I imagine that's very applicable. You could get that to work quite well. Would you be needing to? Yeah, well, I think I've shown a use case for a need to do it. But yeah, I see this being much more likely, like I say, than building a full set of goggles. It's just, you know, it'll be cool to have a colored faceplate on the goggles or something like that. It'll you know, but I don't imagine everyone will do that, but some will, and some will need to do something to make it fit better. Yeah, so yeah. My final thoughts on the this whole thing and the goggle design is good on you, Carl and HDZero team. You know, keep going at this, and I'm sure, you know, your product, if you keep putting in the same effort and working with the community like you've been doing, then I'm sure it's going to pay off in the end. So I'm hopeful for this system, and I'm not unhappy I've invested in it, and I'm looking forward to a set of these. Please like and subscribe the video if you've liked the content, and yeah, please hop on the Discord and say g'day. And you know, if you're into some gaming too, I've got a gaming channel, so check that out, link down below. Peace out, I'll catch you next time.